What is up, everybody? So all the time in my videos, people see these bikes on the wall in the background and ask me to go through my bike collection. So I am finally going to do that in this video. We're going to do a quick overview of each bike that I own. Just know I have a playlist where anything interesting here, there's a much deeper dive into, and I'll link that at the end of the video, but you could just search on my channel if you have questions about a specific one. Anyways, this collection is nothing fancy. You're not going to see a bunch of old Rivendels in here. You're not going to see a bunch of new Crusts in here. You're not going to see some collectible racing Kaonagos. These are just bikes that I have accumulated, either usually really cheap or that have been given to me, or that I've traded for. I am not some high-end bike collector. This is just like my camera collection. It's stuff that I've come across and I enjoy having around and tinkering with and playing with. So let's get started with the only bike that I've ever bought new. So this is my 2001 Trek 4900. I bought this bike new from Eddie's bike shop in Fairlawn, and it was just my bike all the way up till 2015. I didn't think of myself as a cyclist or anything like that. I just had a bike, and this is the bike I always rode. Right now, it is my dedicated winter bike. That's what I ride it for. Studded tires stay on it. I clean it up at the end of the winter and hang it up. Highly recommend having a bike like this if you can. Getting something, buying an old mountain bike, throw some 26-inch, studded tires on there. The only thing that have really been changed, surprisingly, is it now just has a steel fork Kona Project 2 that a friend gave me. In this winter, I put the Velo Orange Happy stem with the Velo Orange granola bars on here, and it's a game changer. Absolutely love riding this bike now. It's so much more comfortable. So, yep, it's for the days when there's snow and slush on the ground, and that's pretty much it. So this was my dad's 1970s, late 70s Motobecane Nomad. This bike had been hanging in the garage and barn of every place that we had lived, and I always thought it was a super cool looking bike. And finally I asked him one summer, or maybe one spring, if I could have it or buy it and fix it up. And he was like, yeah, I'm never gonna do anything again with it. So I kind of took it apart, cleaned everything up, polished everything, learned a lot, took the wheels apart, ball and cone bearings and bottom brackets and all that stuff. Learned a ton about vintage bikes, and then I started riding it. At the time, me and my friends mostly rode on the road and bike paths. And when I started riding this, I was like, oh, this is why it seems like everyone is working so much less hard than me. So riding a road bike instead of the mountain bike on 26-inch wheels when we were just flying down the roads, I absolutely loved it. I came to realize a couple things about it were really, really cheap. The steel wheels and the brakes are horrible. So upgraded the wheels at some point. I think I switched out the derailleur for a little while, but realized it was a really cool looking bike, but it was a really low end bike, and I was just having problems with components. And instead of upgrading all the components, I put it back original, use it kind of as a wall hanger, and I moved on to the next bike. So my buddy Woody hit me up one day and he said, hey, there's this cool bike on Craigslist, check it out. It was this Vicount Aerospace GP, an English made bike. And this one is about 1980, I haven't been able to date it exactly, but I called up the guy on Craigslist, 75 bucks. Turns out he lived right down the road. I walked down and bought it. This is a bike that I rode for a little bit, then over the winter I stripped it completely down to the frame, cleaned it up and rebuilt it. Another good learning opportunity. This bike has some weird quirks about it, like the bottom bracket is 2 cartridge bearings pushed in with the spindle pushed through that and 2 lock rings. The main unique feature about this is its aluminum, cast aluminum fork. It became known as the death fork. It ended up sinking this whole brand and all this stuff. Mine is what's considered a 3rd generation aluminum one that is supposed to be safe. Ride any of these at your own risk, and if you ever buy a Vicount with an aluminum fork, definitely do the research to check it out and know if you should be riding it. They recalled them all and replaced them with chrome forks. That's what makes this unique, is I do have the aluminum fork on here. The other distinct feature is the really cool chainring. This brand originally made all their own components. So this still has Vicount branded parts and Lambert. That was their sister brand or whatever. The brand went out of business because of the death fork thing. I have a whole deep dive on this bike. It's pretty interesting, worth checking out. So be linked at the end like the other ones. So this is my 1983 Peugeot PH10L. I was down at Blimp City in the Cuyahoga Valley bike shop, and I think I was ordering parts for that Vicount, like the little Velo Orange cable guides and stuff like that, since everything was just zip tied on that bike when I got it. And he said, I know this guy, he's a scrapper, he has a tall French bike that you might like. Pretty soon there I am standing in a sea of bikes in a guy's yard, and I see this bike. It's missing the seat post and saddle, it's missing one of the front wheel, and I'm still looking at this thing, and it was like love at first sight. I bought it, I found a new old stock seat post, first. I actually went back and bought a couple more bikes just to get the wheel and yeah, build it up. A few weeks later, I did my first ever Century ride, and I was riding this bike. And then I just rode this bike like crazy. If you saw me over the next couple years, this is what I was on 90% of the time. I didn't have Strava at the time, but even with Strava, I have over 4,000 miles on this bike. The old rear wheel is finally gave out. It was one of those Malyard heliochromatic hubs that work for a while and then break a bunch of spokes and all that kind of stuff. I still keep it running. I still jump on it once in a while. It's nostalgic, it's sentimental. I bought and sold different vintage bikes, but this is one that would never be going anywhere. Full video on this bike as well, but a couple of the unique things. It's nothing special tubing-wise, straight gauge Carbolite 103, but it was during like kind of an aero boom craze, so they actually profiled the fork and the rear triangle, so it looks really cool, really thin. Even has an internally routed cable on the top. So a couple unique features about it, just a bike that I love. And this is actually when we started riding all the industrial gravel and off-road. I was banging around on this thing over everything. Even though it's like kind of aero, it actually fit 32 mil tires. So not wide by today's standards, but not as bad as it could be for a vintage road bike. Unless this is your first time watching a video on this channel, you know this bike, my 2014 Raleigh Tamland 2. This was originally owned new by Otis at Dirty River Bikes. He ended up trading it to me for photo work and promoting the bike shop and all that kind of stuff. I bought the frame, fork, bars, seat post, maybe the saddle that was on it. Ended up swapping out the wheels with the wheel set he had not too far on, Velocity ailerons that have now been rebuilt a couple times. It's been through a number of group set. I really originally built it up with 9-speed Shimano 105. Now it's running 11-speed mix of Ultegra and 105. Titanium bars from Carver. Roadtech equal brakes. This bike's been well covered on the channel, and I've done the whole history of the company of Raleigh and how this one also fits into the Raleigh name because they've changed a lot over the years. So definitely there's plenty of Raleigh content on this, but just know this is like still to this day my daily driver. When I got it, I would still only take it out when I knew I was going to be off-road, and I was still riding my road bikes a lot. Now this pretty much also is my road bike. It's my endurance road bike. It's my gravel bike. I've ridden it on the mountain bike trails. This bike's been everywhere. It's got, I'm sure, over 10,000 miles. Maybe it's up to 20. It's, yeah, well loved and used steel frame bike. I'm guessing only the headset and seat post are original on this bike now. Pretty much everything else has been swapped at least once. So this is a 2007 Trek 1500 SLR. Otis at Dirty River's brother was selling it, and it seemed like a pretty good deal. I was actually kind of eyeing it up for its components and wheel set, which we'll get to in a little bit. But when I bought it, I did end up riding it around for a while, just carrying it up the stairs here right now. Aluminum with a carbon wrap fork. It is so much lighter than all my other bikes, and that's what I was doing. I was getting my hill climb PRs, and I was going out on this bike when I was in the mood to just hammer, which is something I used to do a little bit of, even though I've never owned any kind of kit or anything in my life. So it became a bike I rode around outdoors for a while. Then, like I said, I did strip it for its components. Right now, it's rebuilt as my trainer bike. The reason I kind of stopped riding it out there is it only clears 28 millimeter tires, and this is the older style aluminum and carbon wrap fork. It's just kind of a harsh ride. You know, it kind of felt great like climbing up a steep hill. It's just so stiff and like that, but eventually it's just not really the way I ride, and it really felt like it was beating me up. I do feel like this is a road bike that definitely, for being entry level, did bat above its weight class. So this is an early 80s, I think, Cycles St. Etienne Raja Riviere. There wouldn't be anything super unique about this bike except the story of the man Raja Riviere and my connection with this bike. So a buddy gave it to me to fix up for him. Someone had turned it into this like hybrid with really heavy bad parts on it, and he was like, "Can you turn this more back into like a road bike like it would have been?" Also, he's someone who would be a history nerd like me, so probably researched Raja Riviere, 2-time hour record holder and all this stuff, paralyzed in the Tour de France, and probably thought, oh wow, this is something special. Turns out it's not. It's a cheap, heavy French bike, like a lot of French bikes. My buddy Josh ended up passing away before I could rebuild it for him, so I rebuilt it for myself. This is the first bike I did a 700C wheel conversion, so it would have taken the bigger 27-inch wheels, the old American standard, not 650B as some people get mad about when I say it. So these are smaller wheels, 700 CR, so I was able to fit 38s. So for me, this kind of became my backup gravel bike. I think kind of my first real gravel bike is what I thought of it as till I got my Raleigh. And then when the Raleigh was getting worked on, this is what I would ride. I joke that I've put this these Chinelli bars and this 3T stem on here, and those two things are probably worth more than the rest of the bike combined. So I saw this 1983 Trek 500 American made on Craigslist. I knew I didn't need it, but there I am finding myself driving out to meet somebody and pick this thing up. It was, I think, all original Sun Tour components, down tube shifting and all that. I bought it, I thought it was beautiful. I rode it a couple times, but it was just kind of sitting there. Like I said, sentimental about my Peugeot, and if I'm gonna ride a down tube shifting bike, it's gonna be that or the Vicount. So as mentioned, I bought that Trek 1500 SLR. What I ended up doing is stripping that bike down and putting all the components onto this bike. 105, 3x9 shifting, I don't know, they're Bontrager wheels, some kind of, you know, Trek wheels, but not horrible, not super heavy alloy, so it really turned this bike into something different. And then this bike kind of took over for me. Having the index shifting with the brifters and all that, after years of riding down tube friction, it just pretty much took over from my other road bikes. So I pretty much rode this whenever I was going to be on the road, and I still took it off-road, as you probably know I do. And then I rode my Raleigh when I knew I was going to be off-road. So those two bikes for a while really became my bikes. I took this one on bikepacking trips, did Ohio to Erie on it. Finally realized it's just not what it's good for. The chainstays just really aren't long enough. It was kind of unstable. Hey, what's up, Edmund? And rode it a lot, still jump on it once in a while. I think it's a great bike. With that 3x9 gearing, it could handle anything, like I said, bike touring and then also going fast. So this is a 1986 Schwinn Peloton made of Columbus SLX tubing, so really nice steel tubing bike. The way it was built, I think I bought it on Facebook Marketplace, was with all carbon stuff from like the sketchy carbon era. So people told me I should not be riding the bars that were on this bike. They weigh absolutely nothing but have all these bends in them, and they weren't continuous pour, so whatever. Not pour, that's not how carbon works, but you know what I mean. It had SLK cranks on there that were carbon and ended up breaking when I was out on a ride. I did kind of upgrade some stuff, but it's got race light wheels. It has 2x9 Deore XT, and this thing shifts like butter, and these rim brakes, not even being the latest in rim brake technology, are amazing. People who think rim brakes can't be good don't even know what they're talking about. They're fantastic. They're as good as any mechanical disc brakes out there. So yeah, I bought this to be like a slammed fast road bike, but I bought it not long before I started having sciatic nerve pain, and that's just not the way I rode anymore. So I don't know. It's a cool bike. Should do something else with it. I should sell it or something, or use the group set for something else. I don't know. The other cool thing is these bikes, as I understand in this year, would have come in red. So someone did this kind of cool pink to white fade and then actually stripped the paint off the fork so you could see the chrome. So yeah, someone did a really good job and was ready to start riding it and then decided to sell it, apparently. So I've been jumping a little out of order on when I get the bikes and stuff now, because I want to go through all the bikes that are actually rideable before I get into other frames and projects that are sitting around. But anyways, this is a 1996 Team Marin. This bike is incredibly light frame for steel. I saw it on eBay on somebody in Hungary, and the price was really cheap, and I couldn't believe how cheap the shipping was. But I think part of the reason it wasn't selling is because they had not listed like any of the specs. I looked at it, took a gamble on it. It got here, I'm like, this is really cool. The front suspension shock was really beat up, but I looked online and amazingly found a new old stock color matched rigid fork in Italy that it wasn't overpriced either. So I got that. I decided to build this up as one of those drop bar 90s mountain bike conversions. I just wanted to try it. Ended up riding it on the Gap and C&O trail, so I bike packed on it. It's a fun bike. It handles a little weird with the happy stem and the Velo Orange bars on, you know, because I've just messed with the geometry so much. It's got these cool spin carbon wheels from Pudgy Pedal Pusher, a bunch of other Velo Orange parts. Just a reminder, if you're wondering why I'm not doing a deep dive into all this stuff, it's because these videos on each bike already exist. This is a quick overview of the channel. But yeah, this is a cool bike. I still jump on it now. I like it because, you know, with the walled basket, it's kind of the basket bike if that's what I need to do. So the last time I just took this out, I was photographing a bunch of product for a friend, so I was able to have it all in the basket with this Velo Orange Roadrunner bag collaboration. So yeah, rad bike. Surprisingly light, and maybe I should mention my Mayfec cantilevers. The Paul brakes are modeled on. So my friend Greg reached out to me and he told me his neighbors were getting rid of an old bike and asked if I wanted it, sent a picture. I'm like, oh, that looks kind of cool. I'll take it. It was a Miyata 110, just kind of a cheap Japanese bike, but I got it here. It was maroon and way too small for me. My buddy Ben looked at it and he was like, I have a 110 that is way too big for me. So we just did a straight up trade for the frame, fork, and headset. Anyways, I decided I wanted to try and build a single speed up. I've never had one. So Otis at Dirty River actually had a rear wheel that would work for that. I ended up putting a vintage cyclocross wheel on the front, and these are vintage cyclocross tires. I'll explain where those came from down the road with the other bike. Put some no-name sweet bars on there, then put on this neato Technomic stem to bump the bars way up. So the way I ride this bike is when I have a gig and my bike's gonna have to sit outside somewhere, it's kind of, a single speed, more upright. I'm not trying to get sweaty. I'm not trying to worry about one of my other bikes sitting outside some location. So yeah, got the little pannier that the people actually gave me with the bike on there with this rack that came off a curb find. So yeah, it's perfect for what I use it for. So a friend of the channel hit me up and told me he had boxes of 90s mountain bike stuff in Pittsburgh, and he now lived in the PNW and was never coming back for it. So he said the guy would probably be happy to have it out of there if I wanted to go grab it. So me and Aaron went on a trip and grabbed all the stuff. I found homes for 3 of the 4 frames. They were all kind of cool. Like I said, I kept a lot of the vintage mountain bike parts, but turned out there was a 1989 Team Stumpjumper in there, and I couldn't give this guy up. So I built it up with the parts that were there. So Deore XT, I think it's an 8-speed build, triple. Yeah, so really rad. And then Igor from Velo Orange reached out and asked if I wanted to try out these utility bars and show them to you guys. These are the chrome riser versions, really rad. So I kind of use this bike as a grocery getter because I love the utility bars on the front, put a grocery bag on there and strap it right on. And I put a little rack on the back that I could throw a pannier and all that kind of thing on. So really pretty bike, really cool. One of my latest 90s, well it's 89, but 90s style mountain bike builds that have a reason to use it, and it's just too pretty to get rid of. So I was looking at Craigslist, which I no longer do for this reason, and I saw this Peugeot, I think it's a 1983 PH10s on there, and the guy had it for maybe $100 or something. I tried to be real nice about the fact that it's almost worthless. These old Peugeots are great, they ride great, they just don't have a lot of value. But anyways, I can't remember what I ended up giving them 50. It was completely complete in its original condition, but again, none of those components are really that nice or anything like that. But I picked it up thinking like, maybe I'll strip it and hang it on the wall. The color is just so cool. That's really what I thought. It's cheap. I'll hang it up, I'll do something. But then on the live streams, I started tinkering with it and ended up throwing my mountain bike, my old Trek flat bars on here and build it up, downgraded the wheel size again from the 27-inch American standard down to the 700C so I could get wider tires. Rode it around a little bit, parts been built, didn't put a lot of money into it. I was like, cool, just something unique, top tube friction shifting on a flat bar bike. One kind of cool thing is something I bought on Facebook Marketplace, I believe. It's nuke-proof hub, radial lace to a Mavic SUP wheel. So that's, again, that wheel's worth more than the rest of the bike combined. But what I ended up doing though is I put a little thing, an attachment on the rear wheel because my friend gave me a trailer that he had. And so I've actually used this to do some cat packing, just rolling around with my cat. So that's the home that this pretty looking Peugeot has found, is a bike for me and my cat to ride together. So my Gunner Rock Tour Adventure, my rigid mountain bike, my bike packing bike, my all-around ATB, do whatever bike. This bike is so well covered on this channel, I'm not getting deep into it. The last video even has a full bike check, so type Gunner in on my channel and check it out. One thing I'll talk about is I recently switched to the Soma Portman bars from the Velo Orange granola bars. I don't have a very strong opinion on them yet because I just haven't ridden it enough, and I haven't ridden this bike on single track yet or anything longer. So to be continued on that. I am not decided which bars I like better yet. These ones do come back a little farther and a little straighter, which I thought I was gonna like, but we shall see. But yeah, if you're following this channel at all, this bike's well covered and it's going to be in a lot more videos going forward. So this is the latest bike to the collection and the last rideable bike in the collection. It's a Motobecane Jubilee Sport. A guy named Roger Reed just gave it to me. I believe he's in his 80s. He's done bike touring for decades, and he's ridden the Gap and C&O as well as a bunch of other trips on this bike. He's obviously upgraded to something more modern at this point. You can see he set it up to be a little more comfortable later, but he gave me the components that would give it the original build. This is the only bike that I have that has French branded tubing, Vitus or Vitus. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. So kind of cool bike, Sun Tour group set. I haven't done a ton of research on it yet. I believe it is a touring model. The stays do look pretty long, but yeah, I think I want to take this out when the weather changes and just ride it as is for a little bit, do at least one video like that, and then decide what to do with it. It was a gift. Roger's this hugely charitable guy around town, not only bike causes, but you know, his name's on a number of things. So yeah, I was friends with my dad, and then I've got to know at all the events, and a really good guy. He really got a kick out of seeing my place over here, my old cameras, my old bikes, and all that stuff. So this little wall hanger is a vintage cyclocross bike. If you know anything about this brand, let me know. All I could find is a shop that sells e-bikes now, I think in the Netherlands. I can't remember. Anyways, my buddy bought this on eBay. They gave him his money back because the frame is bent, but he gave it to me, and I've used a lot of the components on other builds, as you could see. Beautiful bike. This is a Falcon-made Barry Hoban. This is kind of a cool bike as well. I had it built up and rideable, but I've stolen parts from it as other things have broken. I should get it running again. I think it's a really cool bike. I even have new decals for it. I bought it because it was like 70 bucks and it's a Reynolds 531 frame. Just bought the frame set and then built it up with other components. So hopefully this is something I'll get back out on the road, but there are videos about this bike when it was rideable too. This is a Gitan Tour de France. This is a bike that I really intended to make my first Neo retro build, but then never finished just because of other projects that came up. Reynolds 531 group set actually had campy hubs and tubular wheels. So the goal was to put 8-speed micro shift on here and get everything working, and I just never really finished it. I even drilled the derailleur hanger so you could put in threaded derailleurs and put a little notch in there so this 105 would work. This is something I should really finish. I had this for years. A guy was selling it for like 300 bucks and I offered him 150 and he sold it to me with all the original components. Another project bike that I haven't finished that I think is really cool here. I bought this frame maybe on eBay, maybe on Facebook. It was cheap. It's vintage carbon look, a burn Arnito. Getting it mostly done with some really cool French wheels, some Kaiserums with that machined look. And then I traded for a campy Stenchar group set. I think that's 10-speed. So again, not really the kind of bike I'm gonna ride anymore, but such a cool thing. I bought it. It would just be fun to finish it and then see what I want to do with it. I guess I forgot, I do have another bike from that mountain bike haul I had out of Pittsburgh. It's this Alpecin Stars aluminum bike. This is kind of a nice frame too. It would be cool to do something with or get it in someone else's hands to do something with. I think Yonda from Dirty River talked about doing a build with this bike. I don't know. I think it's kind of cool. All the cable routing is down the side of the top tube here. I just threw some components on it to see what it looked like at some point, but brought it home as the frame. I was riding home one day and a guy had a couple road bikes in his yard. This one was a Schwinn Paramount and it was like $35. So I was like, huh, is there any chance this is actually a Waterford made Schwinn? It's not, it's a Japanese one, but they're still nice racing frames designed by Schwinn's, racing department when they were trying to compete by going overseas with their builds. But I think these are Panasonics if I remember correctly, but it's way too small for me. I took it apart, took some of the parts. So this is a bike that I'd be happy to sell if anyone wanted it. It's kind of cool. Could make a really cool single speed. This is a tall, probably a 60 Fuji Del Rey I bought off my buddy Carl. This is one bike that I do have plans for. I want to try and do a 650B conversion to see if this could be made into some kind of gravel bike. My memory card actually died. So yeah, goal is to see how wide of tires we could get on this thing with 650B wheels and then see if I can kind of build it up with a vintage mountain bike group set. I'm not sure if it would work, but that's kind of a video I want to make for the channel. A Tony Hawk BMX bike. This is the heaviest thing you will ever pick up in your life. You could actually put a chain on this and use it as a boat anchor for real. My friends gave this to me because I had sold them a vintage bike for their son and this was his old bike and they're like, hey, do you want it? So I just took it. It's something I should get in the hands of a kid who wants to fix something up. Just a couple more frames. That's a very heavy, cheap Japanese frame I got the scrapper and cost me almost nothing. It's not worth doing much with. Same here, cheap vintage Gitan that I bought for almost nothing. So just kind of sitting here. I just think it looks cool and I had originally planned to put it somewhere. And here's an old Raleigh. It's actually a Huffy. Raleigh USA was Huffy. Nothing too exciting, but something that was free. Someone found on the street. So one of those things that I'd rather get in someone's hands who might build it up and use it for something. So made a little bit of a mess back here getting everything out, but this is just my live stream studio. If you watch the streams, you've seen it, but I just have my collection of different bike parts here that I've been working on getting organized so I could do stuff with when I want to. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff here, as you could see. I am someone who does believe that bikes should be ridden, so I kind of justify the collection now with the YouTube channel, but it's a little bit of a lie because I did start buying this stuff before I had the YouTube channel. I would really like to go through everything, and if it doesn't have a purpose and it's never going to be ridden, either take the components for something else or sell it. I'm not a complete hoarder. I have sold bikes, as mentioned. I gave away some of the other mountain bikes I had. I did buy a couple road bikes and fixed them up, and then I'm like, I'm never going to ride this since I have my sentimental road bikes. Yeah, vintage steel road bikes, down tube shifting bikes, nothing fancy. Some pretty ones, but sold those off and stuff like that. So there are a few that you could probably tell, my Riviere, my Peugeot, I'm sentimental about. They're not going anywhere. But to have this wall full of bikes is a little bit of a waste, but at the same time, I do have the space for it. This isn't even my only basement here at the studio, so who knows? So yeah, just to wrap this up, again, reminder, said it a bunch of times, there are individual videos like doing deep dives on these bikes, and I do have the goal to finish off that series on everything I own as long as I keep it. It really, when it comes down to it, my Raleigh Tamland 2 and my Gunner are my bikes. I ride them probably 90% of my miles. This year's been a snowy year, so my trucks got in the rotation more. But then, like I said, other bikes have specialty purposes, and then pretty much anything else I mentioned that's rideable, I'm jumping on it once in a while for nostalgia reasons. So that's what my collection's like. Would love to hear what you guys have. Let me know any questions down below, but please do check the list and look at some of the other videos first if you have really specific questions on one bike. All right, thanks as always for watching. I appreciate it. Check out our little swag store down below. Still do have some of our cool Grav bandanas left and some industrial gravel shirts. A lot of stickers. You saw some of them on the bikes, and we do have a number of new things on the way as well. I will see you in the next one. Peace.